Uko kuno abo bano mama wanna get it nice. I know Buddha meso, I know Buddha zebe.
Right, 20 September 2023, and today I've got a very, very important update on the political events that are taking place in Zimbabwe. I'm not going to take long because I've been very, very busy, so I was unable to complete all my research today on many, many topics that I want to cover. But what I must say is that things have moved very, very quickly in Zimbabwe, and things are going to be happening very, very soon. Everyone has now reached a point where they realize that they just cannot keep fighting. This is where everyone is. If you can see, everyone is now quieting down, and there's less drama in Zimbabwe. In fact, within the next few weeks, I'm going to give you an update on some certain initiatives that we're working on, which I hope will have, by that time, led to something very, very interesting and very, very successful. Because the thing that really hurts me a lot here in South Africa is when I walk around and I see the conditions our young people are living under. It's very, very difficult. And they always ask me, Zimbabwe, what's happening? There's no day that passes without me being stopped on the street to say what is going on, what is going to happen very, very soon. But let me give you an update on SADC. And unfortunately, I do not have good news on the side of SADC. The initiative by Nelson Chamisa at SADC has not been successful. In fact, the Zambians are now in a lot of trouble. ZANU-PF has gone into Zambia, and they've caused a lot of disruptions in Zambia. The Zambian political scenery has been disrupted very, very badly by the ZANU-PF machinery. In fact, they just translated what they do in Zimbabwe, they took it to Zambia, and President Hakainde Hichilema is having a very, very uncomfortable time trying to settle things down there because of that SADC Observer report. So let's look at what happened, and then let us give you an update, and then I'll take you to what is going to be happening next. So first of all, as you know, on the 3rd of September, Nelson Chamisa sent Gladys Tlachwayo, and I think it's Jameson Timber, to go around the SADC region, and they were looking for a rerun of the election. So what I must say to you is that that is totally off the table. That is not going to happen. There's not going to be a rerun of the election. And in fact, it's going to be very, very difficult to even get the SADC report going anywhere. And this is unfortunate because the SADC region is very, very complicated. The biggest problem that occurred, according to my sources, is that when there was the swearing-in ceremony, that was approximately the same time that Tlachwayo, Gladys, and Jameson Timber were also going around the region. And they were being asked, if you are being sworn in, what does it mean? Does it mean you accept the presidential or the parliamentary or the council elections? And it was very difficult for people outside Zimbabwe to understand how you can accept 2 elections and not accept the other elections. So that is where the difficulty is. So in terms of a rerun, that is not going to happen. There's no appetite in the region for a rerun of the Zimbabwean election, although the SADC Observer report still stands. So I want you to understand what I'm saying here. Both President Chamisa, both Chamisa and President Mnangagwa, they are in a tight spot. President Mnangagwa does not have the usual respect that he has from the region. Everyone believes the election was rigged. Chamisa cannot convince the region to do a rerun. So this is where it stands. There's a stalemate. Outsiders from outside Zimbabwe, they are unable to help with this situation. So this needs to be solved internally. That is the only solution that is there. SADC is not going to order a rerun in Zimbabwe, but they're also not going to withdraw the report. This is where we are. And in terms of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema tried everything. He tried to go around the region to get support for a rerun in Zimbabwe, but that didn't work. In fact, as we speak right now, President Mnangagwa, President Filipe Nyusi, President Cyril Ramaphosa, they were filmed today working together at the United Nations. These guys are together, they're tight, they're working around, and they are not going to be obviously supporting the rerun, which means we have fewer and fewer people. And I want to show you a video of this thing. You won't believe this. So I took this from Twitter, and I'm going to play for you President Mnangagwa's speech at the United Nations as soon as they upload it. So here is the from Twitter. This is less than 2 hours ago. President Ramaphosa, President Filipe Nyusi, and President Cyril Ramaphosa, they are together, working together at the United Nations. President Mnangagwa, I think he just presented the speech, or he was just about to present the speech. So it's going to be very, very difficult for Chamisa to say, let's remove Mnangagwa, let's have a rerun under these conditions. So unfortunately, also President Mnangagwa, it's going to be very, very difficult to say, let us just continue as if everything is normal. Everything is not normal in Zimbabwe. Everything has stopped. If you're in Zimbabwe, you understand what I'm talking about. Nothing is moving. All the investors who wanted to come to Zimbabwe, they have stopped coming to Zimbabwe. So everything is at a standstill. And what is needed here is some very, very sober heads who are going to deal with this situation and make sure that things move. President Mnangagwa understands that things won't move without cohesion in the country. And for Chamisa, he understands that his people who are in parliament, who are in councils, they need some sort of certainty. They need structure. So we have a stalemate in Zimbabwe as things stand. SADC is just standing on the sideline, hoping that Zimbabweans will solve this problem. And in terms of the elders were denied access to Zimbabwe. They're not able to come into Zimbabwe. So the situation we have now needs the Zimbabweans themselves to solve it. It cannot be solved by anyone from outside the country. Right, so I think I've given you the correct update here. 3 September, Jameson Timber and Gladys Shatwayo, they went around Southern Africa trying to get support for a rerun. And that didn't work. And President Mnangagwa, after he was sworn in, and after the CCC MPs and councillors were sworn in, the region became very, very confused. They didn't know what to do. And the Zambians have failed to obtain support. In fact, President Hakainde Hichilema right now is being attacked by the ZANU-PF guys. But on another note, the Zimbabwean government and the Zambian government, they formed a task force to repair relationships between the two countries. And as I've just shown you right now, less than 2 hours ago, President Mnangagwa, President Filipe Nyusi, President Cyril Ramaphosa at the United Nations together. And President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke yesterday, which means he's only there at that particular room to support President Mnangagwa. Similarly, President Filipe Nyusi spoke yesterday. So they're in that room to support President Mnangagwa. And this gets more and more complicated. This situation cannot be solved by throwing stones. It has to be solved in another way. So where we are is a stalemate. CCC, they are saying President Mnangagwa lost the election. President Mnangagwa is saying he won the election. SADC saying the election was rigged. No one wants to make the first move. So someone has to come in and step in, and the elders are not able to get into Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF has locked them out. President Hakainde Hichilema right now is very, very busy dealing with the maize shortage in the country and the fighting between ZANU-PF and the UNDP. I do not know where that is going to go. We have a serious problem in the region, and a potential problem that could happen. But what I see is within the next few weeks, something has to be worked out. You cannot write off Nelson Chamisa. Similarly, President Mnangagwa is now firmly in his position. This is where we are, guys, and this is the update that I have for you. Let's now look at the comments, and I know this is sad news for those who wanted to see a rerun. It's not going to happen. We have to go back and strategize and see what else is going to happen here. But it's not going to be a rerun. It's not going to be a demonstration. I will talk about the demonstrations that were happening and who was behind them. But I know for certain that this was not Chamisa's idea to have demonstrations. That's totally ineffective. And I'll go deeper into it. Also, I'll talk about Kasukuwere. What is the impact of Kasukuwere in the region? What do people think about Kasukuwere outside Zimbabwe? That is different from what people think about Kasukuwere inside Zimbabwe. So it's a very complicated situation. But the fact is that the SADC mission of Nelson Chamisa has not succeeded. There is nothing that is going to come from there. What we most likely have is something coming out of an internal negotiation or an internal arrangement because everything has stopped in the country. All right, let's look at a few comments and then I'll close this. Davison says, they will save up Makubatana for the sake of our lives. That's only now. I want to think, Davison, where you are right now, that's where everyone is. Everyone is tired. Even the politicians are tired. No one wants this thing that's happening in Zimbabwe. Have you ever seen after an election, the South Africans coming to Zimbabwe to try to solve the issues? Look at what has happened in the Johannesburg municipality. They have had more than, I don't know, 10 mayors in the past 2 years. Various coalitions forming and deforming. But have you ever seen them coming to Zimbabwe? So the Zimbabwean guys have to work on this problem that we have. We have a serious problem and things are not moving. The economy has ground to a halt and you can't plan. If right now I say to you, what can you plan in Zimbabwe? You can't plan. So these guys have to work together. And Patrick is saying, GNU, we are tired. GNU guys won't work. Remember, we're advocating for GNU. We're advocating for a transitional authority. We're advocating for a rerun. All these things won't work. What is going to work here is some sort of negotiation, which will lead to probably Nelson Chamisa getting a position as leader of the opposition. Or, at the best, an arrangement which will result in a Sabbath. Those are some of the things that we're looking at, and not a GNU. Remember, I think last week, Tinashe Jonas was explaining here what is a GNU. And I want you guys to always listen very carefully when Jonas is speaking. A GNU happens when there is almost a balance. And one side feels that they don't have leverage over the other. What is happening is that ZANU-PF feels that they've got leverage, but they know that things won't work without Nelson Chamisa. So they have to accommodate Nelson Chamisa. And for Nelson Chamisa, he has to come into the government somehow, because if he keeps staying outside the government, he's not going to be able to create the necessary relationships for the time when he needs to be president. So it's very, very difficult, and both sides have to compromise. There has to be a compromise, a solution. That is what we need, and that is exactly what our people have been saying in front of the cameras and behind the scenes. So this is the situation that we have. The SADC, AU, European Union, all these bodies, they failed to do anything. And as you saw yesterday, the European Union has withdrawn 5 million, which they were funding ZEC. So everyone is throwing up their hands in the air and saying, we can't help these guys. But the only people who need to work here is the local people. You can't do it without working internally. You cannot expect the outside to work on it because it's really an impossible situation. Right, so I think this is the update that I have for you. And I really appreciate all the videos that you've been watching here, all the conversation we've been having on and off the camera. And I hope that I'll be in Zim within the next few weeks so that we can continue these discussions from within the country. The other thing that we're doing is we're obviously looking at our old channel and seeing some hidden videos. So you may see some strange activity on our channel where some videos just pop from nowhere. That is because of the guys who are looking and working on our channels. So you might find some old videos just popping up at the top. That is to be expected, and do not be surprised at all. Julius is saying SADC is a scam. No, SADC is not a scam. They've done a great job. Let me tell you what has happened here. For the first time, Nelson Chamisa knows he's got the support of SADC, and SADC is going to be involved in reforms. This is what has been missing in Zimbabwe. We've not been having reforms. So going forward, there is nothing that we can do in our country without reforms. Similarly, Chamisa understands now that you require structures. So you need to form structures. This won't work without structures. Where we are going now, all the young guys that are being sworn in as mayors, the young guys who are being sworn in as MPs and senators, they need a strong political party to back them. And this is what the CCC have to do. We've got lots of respect for the CCC, lots of respect for Nelson Chamisa and all the guys around. They've done a great job. And ZANU-PF right now is at its weakest. If you look at President Mnangagwa walking, you can see the weight of pressure on him. Let me show you this. He's gained 100 years in the past 2 weeks. Nelson Chamisa has devastated the president with the situation there. And he needs all the support he can get from the guys around him, because this is the most difficult situation that President Mnangagwa has ever faced, ever in his life. There is no situation like this. And everywhere he's going, he's answering questions about the elections, questions about his cabinet, questions about his decisions, questions about the future. This is where we are, guys. And this is our country. We all have to work on it, and without fear. As I said to you, let's not be afraid of ZANU-PF. Engage with ZANU-PF. And when you go into a negotiation with ZANU-PF, you go in there as an equal, you get what you go in there to get. And you don't walk out without a deal, because this is our country. So the guys have to get out of the deal. CCC right now, they have to demand that deal from ZANU-PF. We cannot let the country continue to collapse like this. And we just say, we're going to boycott. The boycott politics is over. ZANU-PF needs to be engaged. And if it means you have to drag ZANU-PF to the negotiating table, you're going to do it. Right, so I think Johannes is saying, thanks, Gambako. I was so surprised with you, so quiet for a few days. I had my birthday last week, and the schools here are going to close, so we're having some school functions. I also had to do things at school. And then next week, it's a holiday here on Monday. So we just slowed down a little bit. The guys in Botswana, Dr. Fedias Mtenyeri, has been working on some other project. And also, everyone who works at Gambako here has been very, very busy. But we will not leave you guys without information. And as I said, we are part of this whole thing. I was the first person to tell you how the election was being rigged. I was the first person to announce to you the election results. And as these things happen, we're not going to shy away from this situation. I am personally going to be involved in everything that is going to happen going forward, and without fear. We do not fear our country. And look at us. In 5 years' time, it will be me, it will be Chamisa, it will be Rutendo, it will be Linda Wasarira, it will be all those people that you know, people you like, people you don't like. Everyone who is there now, the Mnangagwa guys who are in government now, all these people, those are the future. The older guys who are there, they do not understand how to hand over. That's what you have to understand. If you are in police, if you're in army, if you're in CIO, look at the guys ahead of you. Do they understand how to hand over? I always ask you guys, our elders, the one thing that they don't know is to leave something for the coming generations. So we end up with nothing as a country, and we end up just a laughing stock all over the place, because we have got a cultural problem firstly, competing against each other in a negative way. Secondly, our elders can't handle. They just don't understand what is wrong with what is happening right now. It's a terrible situation that's happening in Zimbabwe, where after an election, everything is stopped. And ZANU-PF guys seem to not understand that things have stopped. But similarly, we want the CCC guys to know that this can't just be a ZANU-PF problem. They have to go in there, be in like other countries, where the opposition also is in government. Do not stay outside, be inside. And then we all work with the situation the way it is. We solve the problem together. There is a problem in Zimbabwe, the economy is not functioning. People are living in extreme and dire poverty, inside and outside Zimbabwe, and that is what we want to solve. So I think we've said a lot here, and I'll be back tomorrow. There is a situation that I want to discuss with regards to Shingi Munyeza. He played a big part in this flag, and there's a situation that is happening there. So I want to just have a look at what is happening around his finances, and also politically, what are the implications? And also I want to look at the issue of poisoning. Many people are afraid that if they go and work with ZANU-PF, they get poisoned. So if you hear that someone is bedridden, were they poisoned, they just get sick, those kind of things. And also the culture and values of our lawyers in Zimbabwe. I want to touch on those things tomorrow. All right, thank you very much, everybody. I really enjoyed talking to you. And Mkoma Danisa says the older generation fought for the country, and the younger generation is lazy and want to give back the country to colonialists. I think Mkoma Samuel will have to have the discussion another day. But let me tell you something. If you take Chamisa and you make him a president of Zimbabwe, do not believe for a second that Zimbabwe will be worse off. I want guys in ZANU-PF to understand this. It's not about the person. You create systems. You make sure that you stop abducting people. You stop doing all those things that make our country a laughing stock. You stop devaluing the currency. You stop corruption. That is what makes our country work. Not all this thing about colonialists. There is no colonialist who is causing problems in Zimbabwe. You can squarely point the problems at lack of leadership. If you fix leadership in Zimbabwe, everything's going to work. All this thing about colonialists, puppets, that is lies. And this is something that we have to keep telling ZANU-PF. Fix your culture. We want our country to work, and do not blame other people. Blame yourself. But at the same time, there's going to be that demand to say, ZANU-PF, we want a part of that cake. Young people now need to be in that government. We can't have a government that is like this. And this is definitely something that we are looking at. Right. Thank you very much, everybody. And I really enjoyed talking to you. We'll be back again here tomorrow. And good night. Kuno abo bano mama wanna get it nice. I know food I me so I know food I nzebe I know kaya marigi. Come on,